Look at this thing. That's a monster.
Look at this one.
Holy smokes.
This bucket's holding it up.
Oh, okay. And a little one overhead here. What a good vine set this year. Man, look at that.
Yeah, these are mine.
All right. Hey guys, welcome back. Here's video number 4 in the 2440 series. Man, there was a storm front that came through earlier, and you can probably still see some of it, the tail end of it back there, but it was like mid-90s today with nasty humidity. So that's all blown through, and it's actually nice and cool and very little humidity. So anyways, so part 4 of the video here is kind of wrapping things up. We're going to start off with hydraulic testing the low pressure pump. So the transmission pump, again, 145 to 155 psi, and you'll get to see what we've actually got for pressure is quite a bit lower than that. So I shim the control valve, get our pressures back up, and check hydraulic pressure, and then we go into the Rockshaft housing to make sure that I still have good oil flow to the final drives and the transmission and all that. So we get some more borescope video here, which, man, that borescope's cool. You can really get into some places, and hi kitty, you can really get into some tight spots and check things out. Hey Blackie. Oh, little Blackie here. Oh, and little Blackie there. But yeah, it's, man, it's nice out. So anyways, we borescope in the Rockshaft housing, and then we move on to the brakes. So what you see is a brake valve on the side of the transmission housing, and that is actually filled by low pressure oil from the transmission pump. And I did some troubleshooting because we weren't getting any oil into the reservoir, and so I had to modify the gasket a little bit. But anyways, we get that going, get that filled up. So that'll, okay guys, so the hydraulic pump is putting out 2300 psi standby pressure, which is what we want. It's just chattery, it's really noisy. Okay, so the transmission pump inside here is also the charge pump for the high pressure pump. Okay, so the transmission pump puts out the specs 145 to 155 psi, and got a low pressure gauge. Okay, and this pipe, or this fitting here on the very end, is a number 3 O-ring boss, or number 3 SAE. Either way, it's a straight thread with an O-ring boss cut for sealing. So straight thread meaning that the thread itself does not give us any sealing. It just pulls against this O-ring to compress the O-ring for sealing. Those -3 fittings are kind of difficult to come by, and now, at least, you know, 50 years ago it may have been different, but and so this is just a and again, this is a 300 psi gauge. Anyways, I'm gonna start tractor up and we'll check out our charge pump pressure. pull this pressure control valve out. Okay. So this is one of your shims, and that's all the manual calls for, or that's all the parts manual calls for. And I ended up having to take, of course these are oddball size, I don't have any small washers like that. I've got a bunch of small machine screw hardware but no washers. So this is a 1/4 inch lock washer, see it split there. So usually split washers are bent so that when you compress them, you know, they tighten up and then they lock against both of the surfaces, the surface of the bolt head and also your surface of whatever material you're clamping. It happened to be the right size, so I just bent it so there's no longer any bend in this. So I bent the washer flat, but you can see the difference right there. That's the standard one that's split and bent. This is the one that I just flattened out for a washer or a shim. Okay, fire back up and see what happens. So the other day, when I was doing this initially, man, the pump was just, and it has ever since I started it up initially. This thing has rattled and clanked and clanged and just made all kinds of noise. And yeah, I knew that eventually I was going to have to open the pump up and reseal the pump, which I was going to, but I thought it was one of those things that the tractor's sat for so long that some stiction may be keeping the pump from operating normally. So. One more thing real quick, since I do have the main hydraulic pump charge pressure back up to spec, or transmission pump pressure back up to spec, I want to throw a high pressure gauge back on. This is a high pressure gauge or high pressure line coming from the pump. That from the pump, T goes to the steering valve, and then this goes back to your pressure control, aka priority valve. So obviously anything in front of your priority valve takes priority. So this guy here, your steering always has priority. You always want to have steering. So we're going to split this here, and I'm going to put a gauge here. That way we get pump pressure right off the hydraulic pump. Okay, so I've got both my gauges hooked up here. And I'm going to start the tractor back up, and we'll check to make sure that since I increased my charge pressure, that my actual main hydraulic pump pressure has not spiked above 2300 psi where it belongs. Alright, so we're good there. And into the Rockshaft cover we go. So while we're in here, we're looking for oil flow out of these lube lines. So you can see here, there's good oil flow out of that lube line that goes into the left rear final drive. And then we're going to try and sneak away. Okay, so that oil you see draining down from the top of the Rockshaft cover is actually the return from the SCV valve. We don't want to see that, so my SCV is leaking. Right here's the right rear final drive lube line, and you can see that we're flowing good lube into it. So this verifies that we've got good flow. Okay, no brakes. no brakes at all. The reservoir is empty. So this guy here fills the brake reservoir. So if we go over and look for the cutout in the gasket right there, this is what we'll see. That little bitty booger there is the reservoir fill hole for the brake valve. This is a set of torch tip cleaners. Get you a set of these. They're really handy, especially for